Hello, and welcome everybody to this talk about how can artificial intelligence be of help in the legal sector. So here we are, my former partner, Fernando Ortega Gallego. He is data engineer in Plain Concepts. I am Eduardo Matallanas, former AI team lead at Plain Concepts UK, and recently moved to a new journey and joined Cabify in the last couple of months as a senior data science. So today, as you come back to this talk, you're listening to us today, maybe because you're wondering how can a human lawyer can be replaced by the robot, or even further, you are wondering if you're going to be processed by an artificial judge. If you're going to be processed by an artificial judge that will give their verdict based on the evidence. However, there are still too many implications in different fields, such as ethics, feasibility, etc., that we can only dream about it. So as I don't know, and maybe you join us and you are thinking that this was a clickbait, but it is not at all. Today we are going to be focused more on how can artificial intelligence help in the legal sector. So we are going to take some advantages from using AI, which can be like saving time or even take less effort to translate directly this into savings or removing some costs. So can be used to reduce the effort on some tasks. In addition, it can be used to obtain better insights from the data and judge objectively the situation through a function. So some of the applications that we can expect from the AI applied into the legal sector, one of them could be like electronic discovery that relies on identifying and collecting useful information on legal cases. In addition, it's necessary to categorize the information to make it useful. Also, the next could be the contract review. Next application could be contract review that consists on automating the review of contract clauses to validate them in a contract management workflow. The third one is the document generation that supports the automatic generation of legal documents from client data. And the last one is legal research that helps law firms to make decisions in legal cases. For instance, a class action that is going to be the application that we are going to present today. We are going to focus on this application for the rest of the talk. So so we are going to just move to this application, which is an example of how can AI be applied on the legal sector. And many are wondering about what is a class action, right? One of the most famous class action is the one related with the Volkswagen emissions. A class action is a group of people that are represented collectively by one of the parties from a lawsuit. Okay, so as you may know, this case was a big mess for all the countries in the world. So there has been a lot of information and headlines around the case. And in addition, lots of different law firms have been involved to make the class action in different parts of the world. So to put simply and put some numbers into this case, we can see that there were many people harmed by this specific case, and also spread across different countries throughout the world. My former office is based on the UK, and that is why one of the biggest law firms called Slater and Gordon contacted Plain Concepts to create this or to help them with this case. So the idea was to just help them with this case, and we are going to present like how this problem came to us during the previous months. So, as you know, Slater and Gordon opened a portal to collect all the information possible from the people affected by the emissions. However, they found that there were a lot of data coming from the different people and claimants. There were more than 100K claimants. However, not all of them were eligible. So we have like maybe 90K possible claimants that they were formulated and all the data was finished. But after applying some data processing, only just 70,000 claims were eligible to be part of the class action due to some restrictions based on the emission scandal. So the problem that we have at hand was just to how to reduce these 70,000 key cases. So they went to the idea is just to reduce these 70,000 cases to just only 200 cases. So they can be presented on court, and they are called the lead cases. But what is a lead case? Well, a lead case is a person who represents the class of the class action by means of its own case. His or her case is selected depending on how interesting is for the attorney's strategy. So, and how these law firms has normally do on the past with the with all the information that they have. They only use people that were only looking for those cases and filter them. So imagine the cost, time, and human effort that was involved in those lead case selection of the class actions. So our idea was mainly also to reduce that problem, but there are also other problems that came with this focusing on this kind of solution. There isn't a suitable system to process and store all the claimants in one place. This led to another problem, which is related with the analysis of the data and select those lead cases. And also, it's difficult to track the status of the different claimants and how the status of the documents are, or the status of the case. So I will going to just let to my partner to explain which solution we came to, and he's going to explain everything for you all.
Thanks, Eduardo, for giving us a broad introduction and description to the problem. Now it's time to explain our solution. We base it on two key concepts, data lake architecture and a genetic algorithm. A data lake is a centralized repository that allows you to store all your data at any scale. This data lake architecture uses several Azure services like Azure Storage to store the data of the data lake, Azure Data Factory to orchestrate ingestion pipelines from several data sources, and Azure Databricks as a data lake platform. It also bets different data processing steps, like the genetic algorithm of lead case selection. Finally, the data lake tables are accessible from several client applications, like lead case selection. In our case, this application reads source data of claimants, cases, and the results of our selection of lead cases. These results are rendered in some Power BI reports that are enough user-friendly to the lawyers to use them. The data that is managed in this architecture correspond to raw input data and features from genetic algorithm. Raw input data is the data provided by Slater and Gordon from their claimant portal. That is, the legal document of the vehicle, acquisition documents of the vehicle, the sold documents, if any, or the claimant's personal data. Obviously, this data needed to be cleaned, validated, and preprocessed before extracting the feature for genetic algorithm. Regarding the features, there are two types of them, required and extra. Required features are those features that the lead case group must fulfill in order to be accepted by the courts. For instance, the vehicle make, or whether the claimant is an individual or a business. Extra features were requested by the lawyers to prioritize some cases over others. For instance, if the claimant sold the vehicle for less than expected, or if he or she is concerned about the environment. Obviously, we applied some NLP processing and rule-based knowledge extraction to obtain these features. Lead case selection is an optimization problem, so we can use genetic algorithms to solve them. As you probably know, genetic mechanism and evolution of organism inspire this kind of optimization algorithm. Now, let's present our genetic algorithm approach. First, it's necessary to initialize the population. In this problem, a gene corresponds to a claimant, a chromosome to a selection of 200 genes, candidate selection. In general, the population must be as random as possible. In our case, we implemented a heuristic that takes samples from a clustering of the cases. The goal is just to obtain an initial population of chromosomes as diverse as possible. Next, we begin our loop by means of measuring the fitness of the population. The fitness is defined as a multi-objective function of the number of required features fulfilled by at least one claimant, the sum of required features, and other three objectives based on weighting priorities between extra features. After that, it checks whether to stop or not. In case it continues, it's necessary to select which chromosomes pass to the next generation. In this case, tournament was the best approach. It consists on selecting the best chromosome of random and small groups. Now it's time to apply crossover operation to mixed chromosomes. In this case, 2 points approach was the best one that we obtained in our experimentation. Next, a mutation probability is evaluated to apply random changes to a gene of all chromosomes. Obviously, now we need to compute again the fitness to evaluate if this loop, if this iteration of the loop improves the results. And when the loop finishes, or when decided to stop the loop, it returns the best chromosome of the current population. But how many iterations were necessary, and how did we obtain the best configuration? We use MLFlow to track the experiments, obviously to easily compare them and to visualize the optimization results. As usual, it was necessary to run a grid search over several values of the genetic algorithm parameters. MLFlow interface made possible to filter out invalid results. That's it. In our case, whose number of mandatory features were less than 21, which was the number of required features that the court needed for this case of class action. And obviously, we sorted them by a score aggregated, which is one metric that we applied and we tracked in MLFlow and summarizes all the scores that that we explained before in the fitness function. In this case, we can compare the top 5 results. In this slide, a comparison of the top 5 results is shown. All of them improves more or less at the same pace, and they also reach a plateau or maximum, in which improvements are not possible anymore. It gave us the number of iterations that are necessary to execute to obtain the best. In this case, almost 80 operations, almost 80 iterations. This is a summary of the top 5 configurations in which it's easy to realize that they share almost the same parameters, but P mutates function and P mutation is that correspond to the function applied to mutate a chromosome and the probability of mutation. These changes make a clear difference to obtain the best one. As you can see here, this is clearly the value that makes the top 1 results to make it obviously the best one. Finally, the best configuration, the one that we obtained and we saw in the previous slide, thanks to MLFlow, gave us the selection of lead claimants. This selection is added as a table of the data lake so that lead case selection application can easily import this data. Regarding the results, we signed a non-disclosure agreement and document, so we cannot share more than blurry Power BI reports. This report is a summary of the claimants' data. We can see here that there are a high volume of cases for Volkswagen cars, and especially for the model Volkswagen Golf and other, obviously, Volkswagen. In this case, this report shows a summary of the selected cases. That is 200 cases for our automatic selection, and one special case that Slater and Gordon requested us to add manually because they have special interest in that case for the courts. Except for the first feature, which was the typical mandatory feature for these courts. The other one are somehow well balanced. That is, it was a requirement for Slater and Gordon to obtain the most diverse group of lead cases. In these reports, it shows a listing of selected cases and their features. As you can see, it is organized by the kind of feature that is mandatory, which we formally named it as required feature, and additional or extra feature. So it's easy to debug what are the lead case group that we selected automatically and provide us a kind of feedback in order to improve our iteration of the genetic algorithm. Finally, it's also feasible to see a detailed analysis of a case with the specific values of each feature and other sections that summarize several questionnaires that lawyers send in after our automatic selection, because after this phase, they needed to select from the 200 to more or less 20 cases to finally take them to the courts. So now it's time for the conclusions. We are so proud that for this successfully facing a lead case selection problem. We also experimented that Datalake-based architecture really rocks. And finally, genetic algorithms, it's clear that they aren't outdated and can be still used in many problems, like this problem, which is lead case selection. So thank you all for attending our talk, and we are open to any question, and that's all.